This is an NBC News special report. Here's Kate Snow.
Good day, everyone. We're going to bring in our entire network here at NBC News with this breaking news. Right now in Egypt, President Trump is attending a ceremony to formalize the peace deal that he brokered between Israel and Hamas. We just watched him sign a document along with other leaders there. It comes after Hamas freed the remaining 20 living Israeli hostages earlier today. Israel released hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. The president was speaking. He just stopped. Let's go straight to Keir Simmons, who's there in Egypt for us. Keir, this was quite a moment. The president saying, quote, "This took 3,000 years to get to this point. Can you believe it? And it's going to hold up," he said. It's going to hold up. Keir, your thoughts as we watched this incredible scene?
Okay, this is a moment of enormous hope and significant hurdles. The gathered leaders there signing that document doesn't include the Israelis, and it doesn't include Hamas. That being said, the president is talking about a historic peace deal, about uniting factions that have been divided across this region. And certainly in that room with the president are some of the most powerful leaders in this region and in the world. So leaders from Saudi Arabia and from Qatar and from the United Arab Emirates, neighbors of Israel and of Gaza that have the kind of financial capability to really get behind a peace plan, and to the Prime Minister of the UK, the President of France, the Chancellor of Germany, all there to try to lend their weight to President Trump's vision that this could be a turning point, the next phase. President Trump's team saying today, and all of this is happening just a few paces, Kate, away from where I am now, his team saying they are already into the details of trying to make this dream a reality. That being said, there are huge hurdles. There are still questions over exactly what these leaders are signing up to. We do know that the president had a 20-point peace plan that started this process, and that includes proposals like that Hamas will be disarmed, that it will no longer take part in the political process, that there will be a transitional governance of Gaza, and that the rebuilding of Gaza will take place. Just that last point, of course, it's going to be a huge challenge that will take years to rebuild Gaza. And then in that context of the political questions, it is a really, really difficult task. But there is real hope here right now. And the leaders that I have spoken to who have been waiting for President Trump to arrive, some of the most powerful leaders in the world, waiting for President Trump to arrive in order to have this moment with him, they are talking about the hopes that they have that this could be real.
Yeah, Keir, I want to go back to what you said at the top, that we see a lot of presence of world leaders in the room, but absent from this process today, from this signing, are the leaders of Israel or any leadership of Hamas itself, other than the Palestinian Authority leader who's there. Is that problematic? Does it matter that they're not there, they're not part of this ceremonial signing? Well,
it would seem to matter, wouldn't it, that they are the key players in this war and they aren't in the room close by. On the other hand, we've got to this point largely, frankly, because of the determination of President Trump to use all the leverage of the American presidency to force this peace deal, and also because of the desire and determination of neighbors in this region to try to get back to some kind of stability, to try to end the very poisonous conflict in Gaza that was threatening countries' own stability. So they are important players that you're seeing there. They are a group that have the capability to get things done. But just another question, are any of those leaders going to allow their own forces to go and police Gaza? Would Israel even accept that? How is Gaza going to be policed while the rebuilding takes place, while there's an attempt to get to some kind of a different politics in Gaza? I mean, there are many, many questions here. And that being said, again, it has been a day of real celebration of the release of those Israeli hostages, those 20 living hostages, incredible scenes, and of the release of Palestinian prisoners. I mean, that's a deal that has been done largely because of President Trump. And the question now is whether he can use that same leverage and pay enough attention to Gaza, to the Gaza Strip, in order to push through. That is something for the future. There is a sense of celebration here, certainly.
Yeah, and Kira, as you're talking, we were showing pictures from overnight our time in the U.S. where families were reunited at long last with their loved ones. President Trump is expected to speak momentarily to those gathered in Egypt. He said he's going to give a speech. Let me bring in our chief White House correspondent, Peter Alexander. He's in Jerusalem in Israel for us. Peter, we see a podium set up. The president referred to it as a speech. Do we know anything about what to expect?
We don't, but I think it's likely to echo much of what we heard earlier from the president as he celebrated this agreement, this historic day here at the Israeli parliament, the Knesset. As you can see where we are, that red, white and blue building behind me is the parliament building now. As the sun has set, you can see the U.S. colors, the colors of the American flag. They are now honoring the president's visit, this historic time with the return of those 20 hostages today, the remains of 4 of the 28 individuals who are believed were killed or lost their lives over the course of the last 2 years, their bodies being held or having been buried beneath rubble in Gaza today. And as we heard from Keir, he described this sort of peace signing ceremony as a moment of hope. I think here in many ways it wasn't just a moment of hope, but also a moment of healing this day that brings to an end this national trauma dating back to October 7th. 2 years ago, finally, those families are reunited. And so in many ways, this is a day of celebration. But then, of course, the challenges do come up again. What will happen going forward? To the conversation we've been having here through the course of this day, one of the biggest challenges focusing on the disarmament of Hamas, the political structure going forward. What will that board of peace look like? Who will help oversee it? Who's going to provide the resources, the money for the reconstruction of Gaza? And separately, what countries are going to provide their men and perhaps their women to help oversee the international security force through the course of these phases moving forward? Again, we are waiting for the president here. I think the headline of the president's remarks today will come from one of his quotes where he said, "This is the historic dawn of a new Middle East." And that certainly has the tone of optimism that the president has been feeling, that he's been presenting. It also perhaps ignores some of the real challenges that exist. And he widened the aperture a bit when he said that this isn't just a golden age for Israel, but also a golden age for the Middle East, by focusing on countries outside of this immediate agreement, even saying that he was open to an agreement with Iran, perhaps putting a bit of pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu with the assumption that there has been viewed as a bit of unfinished business between the Iranian regime and Israel after the return of fire from one country toward the other and vice versa only a matter of months ago. So again, as we wait for the president here, an opportunity to tout the successes, this day of peace, as he has described it, a historic one, 3,000 years in the making, he says, and he says it will hold up. Ultimately, it'll be up to all parties involved to see whether they allow that to come to fruition. Kate?
Peter, I'm struck that the president has, for months now, touted agreements that he has brokered, or at least says that he has brokered around the world. And we just are getting news, as we're looking at these pictures out of Egypt, we're getting news that he plans to meet with the leader of Ukraine on Friday back in Washington on a completely different front. But do you sense that there is momentum for the president in trying to get these conflicts resolved?
Well, I won't characterize it as what I sense, but I can tell you what I'm hearing from White House officials, including from Steve Witkoff, one of the president's envoys, who told me in recent days that he really does believe that this moment, the success of this agreement here in Israel, does provide momentum and could propel the United States, or really the world, in its effort to create peace between Russia and Ukraine. Now, there is a lot that still needs to occur for that to be the case. It's not clear that Vladimir Putin is watching from Moscow, from the Kremlin in Moscow, and saying he's open to something of that kind. The president had a very different outcome at what he hoped would be a different kind of peace summit when he met with Vladimir Putin in Anchorage, Alaska, only a matter of weeks ago. But with the president expected to meet with Ukraine later this week back in the United States, there is a sense within the White House that if they can build on this moment of unity, this sense of progress, that perhaps there is another peace agreement, or at least a ceasefire to be had going forward. So I think eyes certainly will focus on this region for much of this day and certainly for much of this week. But then a lot of the work continues here, where the president will have to remain involved from a distance. He won't have that direct face-to-face involvement, but from those who have been engaged in the process from the beginning, including one of the negotiators who was participating in this even before the Trump administration returned, before President Trump came back to the White House, told me that for this to succeed, President Trump will have to be a direct broker throughout it, for not just the first parts of this 20-point plan, but for all parts of this plan to finally come to pass.
Peter, appreciate you. Thank you so much. I want to bring in our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel, who's watching alongside us in Tel Aviv, Israel. Richard, Peter just quoted the president saying this is a historic dawn of a new Middle East. Can you give us the bigger picture here? How significant is this moment that we're watching play out? And a lot of people were frankly asleep here in the United States when a lot of this was playing out overnight. So perhaps you can also remind us what all has happened in the last 12 hours.
Why don't I start with the easy one? I'll tell you about what actually happened here and how significant it will be, whether it will lead to peace in the Middle East, as is written behind President Trump. While many have tried to accomplish that in the past, he said this is the greatest peace deal in 3,000 years. It's probably somewhat of an exaggeration, but let's just talk about what happened here over the last day. So this came down right to the wire. According to this peace agreement, which is now being formalized in Sharm el-Sheikh, Hamas, and we're in phase one, Hamas had to hand over the living hostages, 20 living hostages, by noon local time today. And the first batch came out pretty early in the morning, and it went smoothly. They were handed over to the Red Cross, and we got initial first look at the hostages. Very different type of handover than we've seen in the past. By the way, this square, there's still people here tonight, but it was packed with people earlier, cheering, celebrating Israeli flags, American flags, all watching on a giant screen. And when they got their first glimpse of these initial 7, they were wild with excitement and appreciation. And they got the first glimpses, oddly enough, while they were still being held in Hamas, by Hamas. In the past, if you remember, Hamas did these propaganda ceremonies. They put the people up on stages. They gave them gift bags as if they'd been having some sort of good time in captivity. Propaganda that was condemned really around the world as disgusting and in bad taste. That didn't happen this time, not at all. In fact, some of the hostages were speaking to their relatives on the video calls from the vehicles as the transfer was taking place. And on this screen here, people were watching this, getting their first glimpse of these hostages, with even still the Hamas kidnappers in the frame right behind them. Bizarre, but exciting for the people here. Then the Red Cross took custody of the hostages, drove them out of Gaza, handed them to the Israeli military. They were reunited with their families, brought food to for medical care, and to see their extended family. It happened in 2 batches. First group of 7, second of 13. Same scenario. They were allowed to make these video calls as they were leaving. They were greeted by the Red Cross, handed over to the Israeli military, and then brought for medical attention. They all appeared to be in relatively good health. They didn't come out on stretchers. They didn't appear to be emaciated. They looked fairly strong, which is something that people here didn't know. They didn't know what to expect, what kind of condition they were in, because while they were in captivity, many of them kept in tunnels for over 700 days. They were malnourished, the claustrophobia, the confinement, the terrible conditions. We saw what some of these hostages look like in the videos put out by Hamas. One of them, Evatiar David, we saw him. He was skin and bones, and he looked like he was on the edge of death when he was in captivity. I just saw a photograph of him a short while ago. He's put on weight. He looks much better. So their physical condition does appear to be, well, much, much better than in the videos that we saw them during their captivity. The last group of hostages came out around 11:30, so about half an hour before the noon deadline today. Enormous applause, and it coincided more or less when President Trump was landing on Air Force One. So as he was touching down, the hostages were out, celebratory mood here, and then he shortly thereafter met with the families and gave a speech to the Israeli parliament known as the Knesset, and was met with thunderous applause. He gave praise to Prime Minister Netanyahu. Prime Minister Netanyahu said there's been no better friend to Israel, and now he is in Sharm el-Sheikh. A very different day, however, for the people of Gaza. Here, there was a sense that Israel is closing a chapter, that this war, which has been so incredibly painful for Israelis, that began with that horrific massacre 2 years ago, Israelis are now hoping that once the remains, they're still waiting for remains, all the remains come out, they can maybe rename this square and not call it Hostage Square anymore, and move on, and Israel can get back to normal lives, and the economy can rebuild, and Israel can improve its image around the world, which has taken a hit. For Gazans, they're just starting. And they know they're just starting. If you've seen those pictures in Gaza, it has been leveled to the ground. And Gazans are going back to rubble. And we've seen over the last several days more and more pictures, because Israeli troops pulled back from population centers, several population centers in Gaza, but they haven't left the Gaza Strip entirely. They pulled back from towns and cities, allowing Gazans to go back to, in most cases, what is left of their homes. And they're looking in some cases for remains of loved ones. They're looking to see if anything is left there. They're also looking for scrap. They're looking for wood to burn. They're looking for pieces of cloth to wear as clothing, or tarps to use as tents, because they're homeless. They've been moved, displaced from place to place over the last 2 years. And as of tonight, they're still homeless. So while here they're looking for closure, and finding some of that closure today, now that the 20 are out, I think the realization in Gaza is that they are just at the beginning of this new chapter, which is incredibly painful and a long road ahead.
Richard, I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for you explaining all of that for us, for our viewers. The more difficult part of my question: what now? What happens now? How do they get to the next phase of any kind of agreement that would help Gazans?
So President Trump clearly made a speech here and said time and time again that he hopes that this deal can open the door for more peace agreements, that this could be the beginning, as the banner says in Sharm el-Sheikh, of peace in the Middle East. Maybe there is a reason for optimism. If he's there, he's pushing for it, and there's many important leaders assembled in one room, and they are committed to starting a new chapter, then there is reason for hope. Why not take the win? And there is optimism in many capitals around the world about the possibility of a new start. Long road ahead. I think one specific thing that struck me today was when President Trump said that Iran wants to make a deal. And he said he doesn't believe these reports that Iran is restarting its nuclear program. And that seemed to be a message aimed at Iran, clearly, and at Prime Minister Netanyahu, because there was a sense in Iran. I've spent quite a bit of time in Iran over the last several months. We went there during the 12-day war and before it, and there is still a sense in Iran that there is unfinished business, that Prime Minister Netanyahu could restart the war almost at any time, and there's real nervousness there. And President Trump made it quite clear he doesn't want that. He wants to see a peace deal with Iran. So there is a possibility that you can use this moment to engage in other kinds of peace negotiations. But it will be a long road.
Richard, thank you so much. Let me bring in our chief international correspondent, Keir Simmons, who's in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Keir, the president said after he delivers a speech, and we think he's being introduced, I believe, right now, so we may cut away to him, but he said he's going to meet with leaders and stay on to have private discussions. What do we know about those meetings, if anything, and who are the players that he may be meeting with?
Well, we know how close President Trump is to some crucial countries in this region whose power and influence, and particularly their economic strength, has been growing. And those are the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar. He's very likely going to be talking to those leaders. And I think, just to pull back the curtain a little bit, Kate, what we're seeing here potentially is a shift in the dynamics of the Middle East, where those countries that have a lot of money are able to bring some kind of support to a change that might involve, for example, a huge amount of investment in Gaza. Now, there are still big questions that echo through history in this region about how Gaza should be governed and the role of the Palestinian people, how their say should be accepted. But let's listen to what President Trump has to say.
Keir, thank you. Let's listen in now. The president is walking into the podium. I believe he's getting a standing ovation in the room. Let's observe and wait for the president to speak.
وأود أن أعرب عن تقديرنا البالغ لكم وقيادتكم الحكيمة لتلك المسيرة في ظل ظرف بالغ الدقة بما انعكس في طرح خطتكم لإنهاء هذه الحرب المأساوية والتي خسرت معها الإنسانية الكثير.
Turkey and Qatar for their dedicated efforts, and I reiterate our support and aspiration to the execution of this plan, creating the essential political horizon for the implementation of the two-state solution, for it is the only pathway to the fulfillment of the legitimate ambition of both Palestinian and Israeli peoples, turning over the conflict page and safely live. Excellency President, you have demonstrated that genuine leadership doesn't mean war waging, rather the ability to bring it to a halt. We trust your leadership that is capable to carry out the current deal and to execute your entire staged plan. Excellency President, let Gaza war be the last of wars in the Middle East. Majesties, Excellencies, and Highnesses, Egypt launched a peace trajectory in the Middle East nearly half a century ago, specifically in November 1977. When the late President Anwar Sadat, may God shower him with his mercy, took unprecedented steady moves in the history of the region and initiated the historic visit to Jerusalem. Since that moment, Egypt has established a new era, granting posterities a chance for life, and proved that people's security is not only realized by military force. Today, Egypt along with its sisterly Arab and Islamic states, reiterate that peace remains our strategic option. Experience showed over the past decades that this option cannot be founded except through just and equal rights. Based on this, and if the whole regional populations have always been relishing the right to their independent nations, the Palestinian people is not an exception. They too have the right to self-determination and to aspire for a future where war doesn't loom over, own the right to enjoy freedom and to live in their independence. independent state, a state that lives side by side with Israel in peace, security, and mutual recognition. Peace is not only crafted by governments, but also built by peoples when they realize that yesterday's rivals could be tomorrow's partners. I avail this opportunity to appeal to the Israeli people. I say, let us turn this historic moment into a new beginning of just and peaceful coexistence prevalent life. Allow us to look forward together to a better future for the sons of our nations. Together, stretch out our hands for our cooperation towards a just and durable peace for the entire regional population. Excellency President Trump, let us pause at the scenes of overwhelming relief and happiness, whether down the streets in Gaza or in Israel alike, or in the entire world, after reaching the war-ending agreement. Thanks to your wise initiative, it is another evidence to the people's option is peace. We value as well your interest in resuming life in Gaza. Egypt will work with the United States and in coordination with all partners during the forthcoming days to lay down the common grounds for proceeding towards the Strip reconstruction without delay. In this context, we are willing to host early recovery, reconstruction and development conference, which will be based on your plan for ending the war in Gaza in order to provide livelihoods and to give hope to the Palestinians on their lands. Peace cannot be completed until hands are extended for rebuilding in the aftermath of devastation. Majesties, Excellencies, and Highnesses, we look ahead to a bright future to our region, as its cities are built on hope rather on burying the memories of its inhabitants under the rubble. We have a unique and historic opportunity at hand. It might be the last to come to a Middle East free from whatever menacing its stability and progress, a Middle East where its populations relish peace and decent existence within its secured borders and safeguarded rights, a Middle East that is invincible to terrorism and radicalization, a Middle East free from mass destructive weapons. This is the very new Middle East that Egypt envisions to be embedded in collaboration with regional and international partners. Today's agreement paves the way for that, and it should be cemented and implemented in all its stages, and to reach the implementation of the two-state solution, ensuring our joint vision, exemplifying coexistence among the regional populations, even exemplifying integration among all its states. Honorable attendees, before I conclude my speech, and in appreciation to President Donald Trump's efforts, I would like to declare before the August attendees Egypt's decree to decorate His Excellency with the Order of the Nile, the highest state honor among Egyptian decorations. It is awarded to heads of states and to those who render great services to humankind. Thank you all.
وتمنح لرؤساء الدول ولمن يقدمون خدمات جليلة للإنسانية.
Now I invite the honorable guest to deliver his speech. Excellency President Trump, kindly proceed. The floor is
والآن
yours.
أدعو الضيف الكريم يلقي كلمته فخامة الرئيس فلتتفضل.
Well, thank you very much, and that was a great honor. I appreciate it very much, Mr. President, Mr. General, Mr. President, great General, great President. Thank you very much. This is the day that people across the region and around the world have been working, striving, hoping, and praying for. They have done things over the last month that I think were really unthinkable. Nobody thought this could happen. With the historic agreement we've just signed, those prayers of millions have finally been answered, As you know, the hostages have been returned, and further work goes on having to do with the, sadly to say, bodies. Together we've achieved what everybody said was impossible. At long last, we have peace in the Middle East, and it's a very simple expression, peace in the Middle East, and we've heard it for many years, but nobody thought it could ever get there, and now we're there. And I want to congratulate everybody sitting in these first few rows and standing behind me. I don't know why they chose to stand, but I promise I'll make it short, okay? We are not going to keep you standing for long. These are great leaders. After years of suffering and bloodshed, the war in Gaza is over. Humanitarian aid is now pouring in, including hundreds of truckloads of food, medical equipment, and other supplies, much of it paid for by people in this room. Civilians are returning to their homes. The hostages are reuniting. I mean, it's beautiful. I'm just watching it backstage. The level of love and sorrow, I've never seen anything like it. It's amazing when you see they haven't seen their mother, their father. They haven't seen them in such a long time, and they lived in a tunnel, a very little tunnel, very deep. And the level of love is just incredible. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's, in one sense, it's so horrible that it could have taken place, but in another sense, it's so beautiful to see. A new and beautiful day is rising, and now the rebuilding begins. The rebuilding is maybe going to be the easiest part. I think we've done a lot of the hardest part because the rest comes together. We all know how to rebuild, and we know how to build better than anybody in the world. I want to express my tremendous gratitude to the Arab and Muslim nations who helped make this incredible breakthrough possible. And you really did. To President El-Sisi of Egypt, who is so generously hosting us today. And I want to thank you for the outstanding job your country is doing in so many different ways and for helping us so much with this peace agreement. I also want to thank the President for the escort of 6 fighter jets. Oh, we looked out the window, we said, I hope they're friendly, and they turned out to be very friendly. But we had 3 on each side, and they are beauties right out of the great, really American manufacturing hub. We make the greatest military equipment in the world. We have the strongest military in the world by far. And I knew exactly what those planes were, and I knew exactly how much you paid for those planes, too. You paid a lot, but you got a pretty good deal. And they are great planes, and we just appreciate it. That was quite an escort in. It was very impressive. But Air Force One was really, it was covered with Egyptian desert just a few months ago. If you think about it, just a few months ago it was Egyptian desert, and now it was just a few feet off our window. And it was a spectacular sight, and I appreciate it very much. Really, that was pretty good. You got our people by surprise. I don't know if they were thrilled right at the beginning, but they were thrilled as we sailed along very, very calmly and safely. And I'm deeply honored to receive from you, Egypt's highest state honor, the Order of the Nile. The Nile is so beautiful, so magnificent. It's such a beautiful title, the Order of the Nile. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Appreciate it. Great honor. I also want to give a very special thanks to the Emir of Qatar, a man who's outstanding. He's been a friend of mine for a long time, long before politics, and he's a fantastically respected man. His Highness Sheikh Tamim is respected by everybody. He's respected by everybody, and in the most positive way, not only because of power, because of his heart. He's got a tremendous heart, and he's a great leader, and his country loves him. Thank you very much for being here. It's an honor. Let me also express our condolences to the Qataris on the tragic car crash that claimed the lives of your cherished diplomats, some of whom were known by our people, and they were supposed to be incredible people. So please extend our sorrow and best wishes. That was tough. That was really tough. On this extraordinary occasion, I also want to give our sincere thanks to President Erdogan of Turkey. He's always there when I need him. He's such a tough guy. He is tough as you can be, but we love him. And when they have a problem with you, they always call me to handle it. And usually I come through. We just have a good relationship, and we have from the beginning. And so I want to thank you very much and say hello to your wife, your beautiful wife. And it's great to be with you. Always there. When I need him, he's always there. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I also want to thank, I just spoke to him on the phone, His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed, Saudi Arabia, a special friend of mine. Boy, he's come so long and so far, and he's doing a fantastic job for his country. And I want to just thank him. And His Highness Sheikh Mohammed of the United Arab Emirates is here. Where? He's here someplace. Well, oh, he's not here. But he's here in spirit, I can tell you that. And he's been another one. He's been absolutely incredible, and we appreciate it very much. And His Majesty King Abdullah of Jordan. And thank you very much, King Abdul of Jordan. He's here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And you really have been a great help. We appreciate it. Appreciate it. Prime Minister Sharif of Pakistan. And also, I have to say, my favorite field marshal from Pakistan, who's not here, but the Prime Minister is here, and you're going to give his regards. Where are you? There you go. Thank you very much. Do you want to say what you said to me the other day? Come, would you like to say what you said the other day? I think it was so nice. Please.
Thank you very much, my dear President Trump, my dear brother, President Fathi al-Sisi of Egypt, Majesties, Highnesses, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and a very good evening.
As the president cedes over to the Prime Minister of Pakistan for a moment, let's bring in our chief White House correspondent, Peter Alexander, in Jerusalem, just to digest what we've heard so far from the president here. Peter, the president talking about the war in Gaza being over. I was struck that he said humanitarian aid is now pouring in to Gaza. I'm not sure if we can fact check that at this moment, but talk broadly about the messaging that we're hearing from the president.
Well, you're right. I think the simple fact check is that it's not yet pouring in, but the desire is that it will at least return to the levels that existed several years ago. The desire is that the humanitarian need in Gaza will quickly be met by the international community. So I think, to be clear, there is a lot of work that needs to be done on that front. The president did make note here of something, saying that he hopes that today serves not just as the end of the war in Gaza, but a new beginning for the entire Middle East. I really think that has been the theme of his remarks, not just settling for the historic moment that benefits the Israelis and Palestinians in his views, but one that will benefit a wider region, earlier focusing on a desire for a new agreement with Iran, saying in effect that the U.S.'s hand was always prepared to shake that of Iran if an agreement could be reached, which comes against the backdrop of a country here in Israel that still feels it has a major concern as it relates to Iran, and perhaps unfinished business on both sides after the war of only a matter of months ago here. But the president, who was supposed to spend less than 8 hours in the Middle East, has now been here approaching 12 hours. After his remarks before that audience of world leaders, he will begin the long journey back home, and it will punctuate what has been really a remarkable day that began with the return of those 20 hostages, the last living hostages in communities around this country right now. They are celebrating the return of a loved one, a friend, a family member. Many of those who are now being watched on social media across this country, on television screens throughout Israel and around the world, as they see these jubilant, joyful reunions that have taken place. And they focus now on returning the remains of those who haven't come home. But then really the hard part begins. And as the president says that the war is over, we have to acknowledge that he said those comments today, just a day after Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday, in remarks to the Israelis, made an appeal for unity, and also said that the military campaign is not over yet, that there are major security challenges, Kate, as we have witnessed and will witness going forward, that remain to be addressed in the months, frankly, and years ahead.
Peter, thank you so much. Let's bring in our chief international correspondent, Keir Simmons, who's in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. Keir, you're watching all of this. The president taking time to individually thank a number of different world leaders in the room. It almost feels like we're watching the diplomacy happen live.
Yeah, he loves transparent diplomacy, doesn't he, President Trump? And you're seeing classic Trump here in Egypt. What effectively he's saying, standing there, and the kind of riff about, I don't know why these guys are standing behind me. Well, of course they're standing behind him because they want to be seen with him. What he's basically saying there is, these are my friends. Here are my friends, and I am doing deals with people that I've known for a long time, referencing the Emir of Qatar, for example, saying I've known him for so long, I've known him before politics. Of course, he will be talking about business that he may have done in the Gulf region before he was involved in politics. And the idea, which we have seen the benefits of today, of that Trump kind of diplomacy, is that he leverages those relationships and the power of the American presidency to push these leaders into agreeing to deals. Now, we should note that there is no Hamas there in that room. There would never be, of course. There is no Israel in that room. There is the lead president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. He is there, but he is not seen by many as somebody who could be a leader for the Palestinians. So all of the questions remain about exactly how you rebuild Gaza, how you get Hamas off the political scene, how you ensure that Gaza is policed while all of this is happening. All of those questions remain, and effectively what the president is saying is, I am going to be able to get this done because I have such good relationships. We will see. Just a final point, Kate, just remember there are those in that room who are there for their own reasons. The Europeans, for example, want President Trump to support Ukraine and to help them with their war, with the war with Russia. So there are lots of complex things going on diplomatically in that seemingly very simple scene.
All right, Keir Simmons for us, thank you. I want to bring in also our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel, who's in Tel Aviv in Israel. Richard, I know it's been a jubilant day in a way where you are, and some of those families, I think, remain behind you. Can you set the scene for us?
Absolutely. It's about 10 after 8 o'clock in the evening here, and this square has been full all day since the morning, and now they are still here. You can hear people applauding and singing and dancing. It is absolutely a festive day. The mood here is one of optimism, of hope, of closure. People are celebrating that the hostages came home. Yes, there are families still waiting for their remains of hostages who died in captivity, but the main chant that Israelis have been issuing, singing, crying, shouting from this square for the last 2 years has been, bring them home now. And now the hostages are home.
Richard Engel for us in Tel Aviv. Richard, thank you so much. That will conclude this NBC News special report. President Trump signing a Mideast peace deal in Egypt alongside many leaders from not just the region, but across the world, formalizing a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. The president is scheduled to fly back to Washington today after the summit, although he did mention that he might stay behind for more individual meetings with other world leaders. We will, of course, have much more ahead on our streaming network, NBC News Now, online all the time at NBCnews.com, and a full wrap-up tonight on Nightly News as Tom Yamas reports from Tel Aviv. I'm Kate Snow. Thank you so much for watching.